Greetings, everyone. My name is Naomi Simmons-Thorne. I am a research associate here at OCCRL, and I'll be delivering a module to you based on a webinar my colleague Jewel Bourne and I delivered on Tuesday, March 25th, 2025, as the date indicates on the screen. So this module is for those who weren't able to make it and those who want a streamlined version of the content we delivered. So with this module, you'll be able to listen to me walk you through this content through the video that you're watching now. And you can also access the presentation and scenarios that I'll go over if you want to access those items independently. So you can find the material I cover on our OCCRL webpage or our YouTube account. And this module will talk about strategies for engaging partners to gather and provide the data needed to complete Section 5 of the Community Local Needs Assessment, or CLNA for short. We will also provide a brief background and context of the CLNA for those of you who might be new to the process overall. So if you have any questions about what you see in this video or the materials related to the module, or just would like to continue this conversation, you can reach out to myself, Jewel Bourne, or Doctors Janita Baker and Lorenzo Baber for more information. And our contact information can be located on the OCCRL webpage. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into our module, Engaging Partners. All right. To kick us off, we'd like to quickly start with our land acknowledgement, which we deliver at all our public engagement events and activities here at OCCRL. And this acknowledgement states that as a land grant institution, the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign has a responsibility to acknowledge the historical context in which it exists. We are currently on the lands of the Peoria, Kaskaskia, Piankashaw, Wea, Miami, Muscatine, Ottawa, Sauk, Meskwaki, Kickapoo, Potawatomi, Ojibwe, and Chickasaw nations. It is necessary for us to acknowledge these nations and for us to work with them as we move forward as an institution with Native peoples at the core of our efforts. All right. So having given that land acknowledgement, we'd like to remind you or introduce you all to our mission statement for those of you who might be joining us for the first time. So here at OCCRL, our mission is strengthening pathways for all students through research and leadership, and we carry out this mission through a four-pronged strategy. Number one, equity-driven change. Number two, transformative leadership. Number three, comprehensive P20 educational pathways. And number four, public engagement activities and events like what we're here for today that helps disseminate the important work that we do and allows us to hear from you, our industry partners in the field. And this model that is on the screen just captures some of those items that I just listed. All right, before we begin, the final thing I'd like to do is just plug the three webinars and their related modules that came before this one that you're engaging with right now, which rounded out our CLNA webinar series. So webinar number one was called Centering Equity, and it discussed patterns and root causes of equity gaps in CTE programs and offered tools and resources for addressing them. Webinar number two covered the main principles and practices of culturally relevant pedagogy and provided materials for self-reflective practices for community college leaders. That was culturally relevant pedagogy and support. Webinar number three was called Utilizing Data. And this webinar provided descriptive case studies which were used to model CLNA data analysis and interpretation from an equity and asset-based perspective. So those were the three webinars that preceded this one, and that leads us, of course, to our module for today, Engaging Partners. So please make sure to check out those modules that I just talked about, and let's go ahead and jump into our content for today. So for our module, we'll be delving into Section 5 of the Community Local Needs Assessment, or CLNA, and this section is the section on labor market alignment. So we'll be defining what it means to be a partner and how we can engage those partners to complete Section 5 of the CLNA. More specifically, we'll be discussing engaging partners in the context of identifying labor needs and opportunities, defining and planning for industry engagement, addressing equity gaps, and tapping into opportunity clusters. And with this, our ultimate goal is to share best practices, highlight statewide CLNA trends and patterns, and finally, to help institutions address labor market needs in their regions and around the state. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this module. So, beginning with the basics, what is the Community Local Needs Assessment, or CLNA? Every couple of years, Perkins funding requires that institutions conduct a comprehensive local needs assessment, or CLNA, which involves gathering and analyzing data to address and plan for the educational and workforce needs of their local communities. But our focus for today is not the CLNA in its entirety, but more narrowly, Section 5 of the CLNA and how to engage partners to gather and provide the information that Section 5 requires. So, who are those partners? Today, we'll mostly be focusing on nonprofits and community based organizations, agencies and organizations who assist with workforce planning, and industry partners like employers and commercial ventures. So, these are the sorts of partners who we have. In mind, and these are the partners who have the data, information, and industry insights that you will need to complete Section 5 of the CLNA. So now that we've set the stage and our scope for our module, let's go ahead and dive into the section of the CLNA that all this information pertains to. So Section 5 of the CLNA is all about labor market alignment. Labor market alignment is the process of ensuring a college's programs and offerings are relevant to the students' needs and workforce trends in their service area, which is a stipulation, of course, mandated by Perkins funding. Now, this is important because it helps colleges identify what they're doing right and where they could do better in terms of ensuring their students are graduating career and transfer ready. So Section 5 requires colleges over a series of 11 prompts to gather, analyze, and report data on local workforce needs and equity gaps, and to share how colleges are responding to workforce and equity trends and how they will do so in the future. So with this module, our task is to show how colleges can go about gathering this data and revise their programs and offerings based on that data. So let's begin with our first topic, engaging partners to gather workforce data. All right. So we believe that engaging partners is, of course, absolutely essential for gathering workforce data when it comes to Section 5 of the CLNA. And of course, as colleges, we are busy facilitating learning and working for our students. And so we don't have the time, and in many cases, the know-how or the resources to independently develop primary data on economic trends in our service areas. Although, of course, Section 5 of the CLNA does require that information. Trying to do that, of course, would just spread us way too thin or even get in the way of our actual service missions. So our recommendation here at OCCRL is to rely on our partners, and in this case, that would be workforce planners, to gather that information that we need. So our local and national workforce planners are already gathering and monitoring the data that we need. So as CLNA preparers, we can just tap into those pre-existing data sets for our CLNA Section 5s. So that is what I want to do for now. I want to show you how well, one, who those partners are, and also where you can find their resources and how to engage those partners. So, two workforce planning partners you should certainly know about are the Illinois WorkNet Center and also the Illinois Department of Economic Security. So, the Illinois WorkNet Center hosts an important tool called the Local Workforce and Innovation Area Map. And this map is broken up into 26 local workforce innovation areas, or LWIAs. And every Illinois community college is located in one of 26 of these innovation areas. And you can go to their website and click on your area to download data and information about economic trends and resources for your specific cluster region. And their website is located at the URL below that will be available in this presentation and also in the module materials related to it. The next partner that we want to talk to you about is the Illinois Department of Economic Security. And they also offer something similar to what Illinois WorkNet offers as well. They offer a map of 10 economic development regions, or EDRs, and these EDRs provide data about industries and economic trends for all 10 of the EDR regions. So these are some powerful tools by some of our best workforce planning partners. And we at community colleges, of course, can access their data to complete our CLNA Section 5s. And this is definitely one of our recommendations for you here in this module. So moving on, in addition to the regional data maps I just showed you before, community-based organizations are also excellent partners you can engage to collect data about economic and workforce trends. Most Illinois regions and counties have what's called an Economic Development Organization, or an EDO, that collects data on local economic development. And so Vermilion Advantage, for example, is the registered EDO for Vermilion County in Illinois. So you can research to find out what is the closest EDO to your service area, and you can engage that EDO to get some of the information that you will need for your Section 5 of the CLNA. Now, this other suggestion that we have for you is a little bit more creative, but state and federal grants and funding can also signal economic and workforce trends. So here in Illinois, for example, we have the Illinois Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, or the CEJA, and this is providing this line of funding is providing various sorts of funding for green scale workforce development around the state. So this is a sort of program that kind of clues you in to where workforce trends are headed in our state. And the same thing can be done if you go to the webpage for the U.S. Economic Development Administration and check out their grants and funding. This shows you what industries and what sort of jobs are in high priority at the moment. All right, so let's make a small pivot from Section 5 data collection and talk about Section 5 data analysis. So after you gather the required data for Section 5, you then have to analyze that data, right? And provide the Illinois Community College Board, or ICCB, with a judgment about whether your institution is labor market aligned, and if not, what your college plans to do or change to become labor market aligned. So the question is, how does an institution actually go about making that sort of determination? How do you go about determining whether or not you are labor market aligned? Well, fortunately, the CLNA does make some suggestions. So, for example, it encourages colleges to consult local workforce development boards, chambers of commerce, and unions, for example, and talking to them about your data to get their industry expertise and expert opinions. But interestingly, there have also been some notable CLNA trends toward the use of program gap analysis. And that is also another outlet, that institutions and colleges should also be familiar with. So program gap analysis are comprehensive programmatic assessments, and those are done by market-based researchers that can be customized to fit your unique data collection needs and let you know whether your program meets some specific aim or objective, which in this case would be program alignment. So there are some industry partners that institutions are collaborating with to gather this kind of information. One example is a company called EMIS. So that's E as in elephant, M as in Mary, I as in Illinois, S as in Sarah. EMIS or Lightcast. Lightcast is another one. So of course, if this is something that your college would be interested in, definitely let us know here at OCCRL. But with that said, we are going to switch gears just a tiny bit from talking about data collection and data analysis and discuss responding to that data that you've collected. Right. So let's kind of just think about a scenario right quick. So you've engaged partners to get the information that you needed to complete Section 5 of the CLNA, but now you need to know how to engage those partners in the industries that the CLNA points you toward. So that's what we're going to delve into in this section here. So after we know what industries and trends we need to be responding to, it is important to define the appropriate level of engagement for those industries in the context of your institution. So here are some guiding questions that you and your college can begin asking to properly contextualize your data response. What is feasible for us? What is our student interest level? What firms and agencies can we partner with and how? What specific outcomes are we hoping to achieve through our partnerships? What resources do we need to reach that outcome? How much time will we need to commit and how will we measure our success? Now, those guiding questions are going to help us dispel some common myths and misperceptions about crafting a CLNA data response. One common misperception about labor market alignment is that it's a one-size-fits-all policy, or that there's only one way to ensure labor market alignment, and that's simply not the case. Labor market alignment has to be tailored to fit the interests of the students, college, and specific industry that you're trying to engage. And that's not only going to look different from institution to institution, but from program to program. So, for example, responding to precision machining technology as one industry example is going to look a little bit different from the strategies that you're going to use if you're trying to engage early childhood education, for example. Another thing to stress is that labor market alignment does not equal establishing a new certificate or degree granting program per se. What this chart shows, and the chart that I have listed here, what this chart shows is that there is a continuum of engagement strategies, and the best one for your institution will depend on the industry, student interest level, and resources of your college. And so what we have here is a model to help you conceptualize the different levels of responses or engagement that you might seek to adopt, the nature and scope of those engagements, what those engagements are going to look like, and the various kinds and sorts of programming activities that's associated with those different levels of engagement. So, for example, this is how you'd kind of use this model. So if your institution does a program gap analysis and you discover that precision machining technology, for example, is growing in your area, but you currently don't have any programming related to the specific industry, you can consult this model to decide how to align your offerings with respect to student interests and college resources. So maybe that means doing a level one kind of engagement. So, for example, career awareness activities like career days or career fairs. But maybe that might mean a level two kind of engagement where you're doing worksite tours or mentorships. It can also mean perhaps if the student interest or the resources are really there, looking at a level three mode of engagement, and that's going to encompass workplace experiences like offering a program or a certified internship. And so, whatever you decide, just know that there is no one size fit all policy when it comes to labor market alignment, and that labor market alignment does not mean L3 starting a new degree or certificate granting program per se. So for more on this topic, please do see the Illinois State Board of Education Work-Based Learning Manual, and I did include information for how you can access that in this slide. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. All right, and let's talk about the final thing that we need to cover, which is recruiting industry partners, the final thing that we need for this section. So after you collect and analyze your data, after you developed a data response, the question rises, how do you recruit firms and agencies to help craft the experiences that'll help you get your students' career and transfer ready? Now, I do want to keep this brief, this module, since this is supposed to be a streamlined version of the information that we gave in the webinar. So I do want to keep this brief. And recruitment, of course, is a whole another topic in its own right. But I do at least want to leave you with some information that you can use. And so I would recommend consulting the Illinois State Board of Education's recruiting strategies document. And I've provided that URL below. And you have that information here on the screen, but also please contact us here at OCCRL if this topic is of interest to you and you'd like to talk to us about it a little bit further or one-on-one. So, we do want to save some time to talk about CLNA equity gaps, which is the last thing that we have for you in terms of content. All right, so now we're going to do a little bit of a shift, and this is going to be the final thing that we cover in terms of content. And we want to talk about the final CLNA question category, which is the section on equity gaps. And these questions in the CLNA related to equity gaps are about what your institution is doing and will do to identify and address CLNA equity gaps as they arise. So our task for today is to just broadly hone in on statewide equity patterns and trends and resources individuals can engage, consult, and also cite in their Section 5 equity plans. All right. So the reason we are focusing on statewide equity patterns and trends is because the CLNA requires this information, of course, but also because equity reporting can be challenging. And with this difficulty, it is more common than you would think for institutions to submit CLNAs, for example, stating that their colleges have no equity gaps, which we all know, of course, is not the case. And that's not because colleges aren't trying, but just because this work is hard and no institution is perfect. So our view is that understanding broad statewide CLNA equity patterns and trends can help improve the equity reporting process for the CLNA, and it can do that by giving colleges some clues about what they should be looking for in groups that they might need to keep an eye on. So what we've seen here at OCCRL is that there are three main statewide equity gaps that colleges are reporting. So one of those things is that graduates are experiencing gender and race-based pay and hiring gaps when they leave our programs. Number two is that students are facing financial hardships while they're in our programs, which can lead to completion gaps. And finally, number three, that English learners and students with disabilities are having challenges accessing and completing our programs. So in addition to the pre-existing gaps your institutions are identifying. These are some of the additional ones to be on the lookout for if they're not coming up in your data collection process. Right. Once again, due to time constraints, we can't do a deep dive into any of those really important topics, but I do recommend going back and watching our October webinar or accessing the related module on it. And that, of course, module was called Centering Equity, where there's more detailed information about these topics and issues. But I didn't want to leave you with just two broad suggestions as we work toward addressing CLNA-related equity gaps. Those are suggestions relating to how to identify them and some partners, some local and state partners that you could perhaps engage with and work with towards addressing them. So those resources and suggestions are listed down below, and you can also find them in our module materials. And once again, more detailed information on these topics and issues can be found in our webinar/module Centering Equity. All right. So we have now reached the end of our module, at least the content for the module. But what I would like to do is just to give you a little bit of a rundown on the following activity that you can use individually or with your team to test your knowledge on the content that I just delivered, the content that will be available through the module. So those materials for this activity can be found either in the full PowerPoint or on its own. Um, and if you have any questions or difficulties accessing any of that information, please don't hesitate to reach out. And just a reminder, that information can be accessed on our webpage for this module. All right. So for the activity that we have for you all, what we'll do is we'll leave you with a set of three scenario cases that require you to read a background on a sample institution, consider their unique contextual factors, and develop a programming response based on that information. So what you'll do is essentially this. You will review the scenario, you will identify strategies, and you reflect on what you come up with. You'll reflect on what you come up with and uh, discuss that either with colleagues or if this is just something that you're going to do independently, just reflect on that information. So I'm going to show you our three sample scenarios. So let me go ahead and do that with you. So here is scenario one, Blue Valley Community College. It's an IT program kind of scenario. Here is number two, Green Valley Community College, and this is about EV technology. So this is really related to the Climate Equity Jobs Act that we talked about a little bit earlier. And then lastly, Metro City Community College, their urban farming, excuse me, not family, but farming program. All right. So that is everything for us on both the content and the activity related to the content. So once again, here is our contact information, and please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have any questions about what we've covered today or anything about the CLNA in general. We'd love to hear from you, and thank you and take care. So I'm going to go ahead and close out this module now.